Thank you very much, Pastor Tim and Susan. I thank you for the invitation. I want to thank my good friend, my strong right arm, in fact, Michelle Odom. All of you should know her. Michelle has been with me since I started this journey as far as radio is concerned here in Shreveport. We were on Keel for 3 years, I believe it was. And then we went national. Red State Talk Radio is the largest talk platform in the entire nation. We're on from here locally 11 until 1 o'clock every day. And if you're traveling through Times Square, you pass by the iconic Ripley's Believe It or Not. And right above Ripley's Believe It or Not is the Red State Talk billboard there in Times Square, about a block from where they dropped the big ball. Every hour, even now, old CL's face is popping up there, the CL Bryant show in Times Square. It is a great day in the United States of America, and God has blessed us once again to be alive in this nation. I don't know about you, but I know him as a waymaker. I don't know how many of you may have been in here, have never been in a situation where you did not see your way out of that situation. I have found that God is a waymaker, a promise keeper, light in the darkness. That is who he has been for me. And friends, I was born right here at Confederate Memorial Hospital. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember Confederate Memorial Hospital. That's what LSU Hospital was. That's what Ochsner was before they changed the name. The history of our city is a very unique history. It's the last city to concede defeat in the Civil War. It is a city that is known across the country as the city of churches. And I was talking to Pastor Tim a little bit earlier today, and I was telling him that I do believe that God is going to raise up, yes, a voice and even a method from a place that seems as unlikely as Shreveport, Louisiana, to speak to the rest of the world. Let me see the hands of all the Southerners in the house. Every hand, some of you have migrated here, so you may not be from the South. All the Southerners. This is why. And this is what God has shown me in my spirit about the South. We have a message for the entire world that can be absolutely brilliant if we would learn it and say it. All of you Southern boys who like to hunt, let me see you. All of you Southern boys who like sports, let me see you. All of you Southern boys who know what I'm talking about when I ask you, let's go get some black-eyed peas and cornbread down at the restaurant. All you Southern boys know what I'm talking about. My point is, Southerners, whether we're yellow, black, white, particularly if we're black and white, we share the same things. Southerners love the same things, whether you're black or white. We love the same foods. We believe God the same, and sports is religion. Wherever you go in the South. And we have overcome so many things that people in Chicago, in New York City, they cannot comprehend how it is we understand each other in the way that we have understood each other. It's because we have come through a common history, that we have common sense enough to understand that there's nothing we can do about the past. I can't do a thing about being born in Confederate Memorial Hospital, but I'm very proud that I was, because I'm able to tell the story. And when you take away the story, when you take away the history, what do you fill it with? It has to be filled with lies. It has to be filled with propaganda. You have to tell the story. I am the great-grandson of former slaves in this country. But I am not a story that is a story of defeat. The story of the black man, the black woman in this country is a story of triumph and victory, and that is the story. The story of the South is not a story of defeat. It is a story of triumph. It is a story of victory. We're still here, and we're still being a light unto the rest of this world. Tell the story. My roots run into Acadiana, down below Lake Charles, up through Opelousas, on into Cane River, and then here into Shreveport, and all the way up to Benton, actually. It's where you'll find my father's people, and my mother's people are from a little place down the road, a little place called Grand Cane, Louisiana. The property that my wife and I had together. My wife has passed away now, but in fact, this is the first time I'm up again since I lost her, and it's amazing what God told her before she passed away. She said that continue doing what you do with all the fire and all the passion that you always did it with, and I'll be watching you. And so today, "46 years. I'm 64. Oh, I know I look great. No, I didn't. I'm 64, but I was 18 when Jane and I got together, and we have 4 children, 11 grandchildren, and 2 of my daughters live here in Shreveport. I live here in Shreveport now. Michelle's trying to talk me into staying here, but of course that's her job. She's a thorn in the flesh. But I do have witnesses. Friends, I am associate pastor at Word of God Ministries, where my pastor, Pastor James A. McMinnis, is our senior pastor. I am the creator and star of the award-winning film, Runaway Slave. In 2012, we premiered actually at Regal Theater and theaters around the country. I won't go into all the details about what it's about. You can get it on Amazon, and we're about to put it back up on Amazon Prime so that you can watch it from your own home. I'm a senior fellow with Freedom Works, Washington, D.C. That's where my main office is. I crisscross the nation once a month, at least before all this started, carrying not only the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ, but also the good news of America. Go to freedomworks.org. We are the largest grassroots organization in the nation. We boast 6 million activists on the ground, just like you, throughout the United States. And, of course, the C.L. Bryant Show, download free the app onto your favorite device, the C.L. Bryant Show. Follow me on Twitter at Rev C.L. Bryant. If there's a story that I want to share with you, it basically will come from the Old Testament, Isaiah 53, verse 6. All of you, like sheep, have gone astray. And you've turned, every one of you, to your own way. But the essence of the Judeo-Christian ethic in this country comes from the next phrase in that verse. But the Lord has laid upon him the iniquity of you all. That is the essence of who we are as Christians. It sums us up in one verse, all of us, like sheep. And when you look at America today, And one of the things that I am so surprised at with this coronavirus outbreak and epidemic, what is so surprising about all of this is the fact that we, a country of independent thinking people, a country of folks that you couldn't herd them if you were a cat herder. Because the American spirit is not designed to be herded or shepherded. We are supposed to be self-governing type of people who always cringe from the heavy hand of being told what to do by our government. Our founder put into our documents these words, and this is how we know that these are divinely breathed. This is how we know that America has been that exceptional nation and has become that exceptional nation, because it is the only nation that has ever existed that has gone to war against itself over the freedom of other men. And we won. We liberated ourselves from an evil that was upon us. And we hear all the time that slavery existed in this country for 400 years. No, it didn't. Slavery only existed in this country 82 years after it became a country. Slavery had existed on these shores for 400 years. But once America became a nation, its own creed, its own words, demanded that they let those in bondage go free. And they did. And in our infancy, we had to learn how to walk. We had to learn to crawl and walk. And many times, even today, the problem with us is that we live, all of us, in this three-roomed house. The house of the past. House of the present. House of the future. It's a strange thing, though. The room that we like to spend most of our time in is the room that when you visit it, there's not a picture on the wall. There's not a story that has happened in that room. There's not a piece of furniture in that room of the past that you can possibly move around. There's nothing in that room that any of us, when we visit that room in our house, the one we love to stay in, there's nothing there that you can change about that room in the past. But my friends, I come to warn you today, there are factions in this country who want to drown you in the sorrows of what happened in our past. Have you ever met anyone who constantly want to remind you of what you used to be? God. Friends and family can be the worst. Takes a lot of courage to stand up to your enemies. When you know they're wrong, you stand up to them, but it takes even more courage to stand up to relatives and friends. And when you start waking up and saying, like so many are saying today, wait a minute. This is not us. This is not who we were designed to be. And friends, once you forget the purpose of something, my pastor says this all the time. I just love him for this. Once you forget something's purpose, abuse is inevitable. Americans, there are people in office now that you have elected, many of you have, that have forgotten the purpose of our nation. They never knew it. Ask our graduates, and I'm glad that they're graduating, but ask them if they ever studied Louisiana history. Those of you over 45 remember the Louisiana history book about that thick. You remember civics. We were taught about our nation. And before I go any further, let me make something perfectly clear. I'm on the board of one of the president's boards. He appointed me to that board, Black Voices for Trump, original board member. And I want to make this clear. I never preach the politics of it, but I always want there to be full disclosure about where I'm coming from. And I always want there to be full disclosure about this word in particular. And when we're talking about sheep, we're talking about someone coming along pointing out just how sheepish we had been, especially with those Chinese. And there are a lot of people who don't like the leadership that God has placed where he has placed it at this point in time. But let me tell you something. When I look back through the people that God has used in Scripture, it makes you wonder sometimes how any of them got there. Have you ever really looked at the story of David? How did he get in the Bible? Or his son, Solomon. How did he get in the Bible? Jesus, even the character of Jesus, we see that down through his lineage, he not only has shepherds, harlots, and kings, he represents all of us in his lineage. The Apostle Paul, well, how did he get in the Bible? Moses, how did he get in the Bible? God uses who he chooses. And I'm going to tell you something at this point in time, and I'm going to leave it alone and I'll walk on away from it. I have turned over in my head over and over again various personalities from Joe Biden to Ted Cruz to whoever. I don't know of an individual, including myself, who has the strength and character to suffer constant barrage day in and day out and still function with courage and fortitude. That's who God has placed at the helm. I know him personally. He's a good guy. You'll like him as you met him. My story is one that could not be told anywhere else. Neither could yours. Our young people today marching in the streets of America and many times burning down America don't realize the great heritage that they are attacking. All of us are from different places originally and came to these shores, even the Native Americans who call themselves that. They came from somewhere else too. In every nation on earth, in fact, the history of mankind is a story of human tragedy and pain. That's our story. Because all of us, like sheep, have gone astray. And we've turned each one to our own way. And the only saving grace, is the second part of that verse, is to realize that God has laid on him, the Lord has laid on him, Jesus Christ, the iniquity of us all. And in this Judeo-Christian society that we live in, young people who are graduating from high school and college, don't you ever allow anyone to tell you differently. This is an exceptional nation. And because you are a citizen of this nation, you are an exceptional people. But this nation was created for a moral people. And it will not work for anyone else who cannot govern themselves. The sheep have gone astray, and it's time for us to wake and understand that the gift that we have been given by God is the ability to self-govern, to have dominion. Requires people who can self-govern. And this land is one that only works for a moral people. And as we demoralize, as we begin to demoralize in this country, you have people who are changing definitions. Definitions of family. Definitions of gender. Definitions of church, God. When you change the definitions, you change the destination. And that's what is happening in this country, is that they're wanting to change the destination. And in order to do that, they're wise enough to know that they must change the definitions. Your young people today are absolutely brainwashed. Most of them think, if you haven't held them close and taught them well, that you are losing your mind. And most of them see for themselves that they are not able to accumulate their own stuff. So guess what they want? They want your stuff. I am telling you, folks, that we are breeding a codependent society coming up behind us. And it's happening right before our eyes. All ye like sheep, you've gone astray. Each one of you have turned to your own way. When did time out become the preferred punishment for children? Who were we listening to? All of you. My mother's favorite verse, my wife's favorite verse as well, and my mother-in-law's favorite verse was this one. Psalms 27, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? Friends, when the wicked, even my enemies and my foes, come upon me to eat my flesh, I thank God that He is a way maker, that He is a promise keeper, that He is a light in the darkness. There are times, friends, as I tell you, I travel a lot to college campuses and speak on many college campuses. And we're about to get back into, Michelle, I'm about to get on the road again, get back into crisscrossing the nation again. Once a month, every month, I crisscrossed the nation somewhere, speaking to large, small crowds, you name them. And sometimes those situations are dangerous. And in times like that, we don't really understand. Of course, we have security and all that type of thing. But many times, I'm reminded of a story that happened, I believe it's in Luke. A man's son was dying. And he asked Jesus to come and save his son. Actually, it's in Mark. Mark 9 and 23, 24. Jesus says, if you believe, all things are possible. The man said to him, in America, we should say this today, Lord, I believe, but help thou my unbelief. Friends, we are a nation that has been founded upon principles that are unshakable. And Tim, I love the work that you do with AIPAC. It is a blessed work. I still believe what God said to Abram, I will bless them that bless you, and I will curse them that curse you. Friends, you had better remain friends of Israel. But our unbelief is being bred and spawned in our children. This is the first generation of American children who live in America between the ages of 7 to 17, who 73% of them, no, it's 63% of them have never seen the inside of a church, a synagogue, or a mosque. the first generation of American children between the ages of 7 to 17 who has never seen the inside of a church, a synagogue, or a mosque. But they believe in something. And there is a religion that is being bred in this country, in the minds of our young people. It's called relativism. Everything is relative. All ye like sheep have gone astray. Friends, there are truths to be embraced. And Jesus Christ is the greatest reality, the greatest truth that I have ever experienced. And Pontius Pilate's question to him, what is truth? I came to bear witness that truth exists, and our young people must in fact understand that they are being robbed of their birthright. For beans, for a pot of beans, you are being robbed. And not only that, you're being lied to. Woe unto you when all men speak good of you. The thing that we want most of all in life today, especially if you're under 40, is to be liked on Facebook, on Twitter, or on Instagram. Woe unto you when that's all you're thinking about is how many people like me. Woe unto you when you go that far astray that you think those people like you. You have gone astray. And it causes you to turn to your own way. You start saying things about yourself on the internet that you know is not true. God has laid on him the iniquity of us all. Watch out for the redefining of our country. Watch out, my friends, for the relativism that's affecting your young people and your grandchildren. A friend to all and a mentor to some of us, Ravi Zacharias, went on to live with the Lord. And Jane, just last week. And friends, I want to leave you here as I close here today with something that Ravi was faced with when he was speaking to a crowd at a university. Young man, after he had finished speaking, said to him, Professor Zacharias, how do I know that I exist? Ravi looks at him and says, and whom may I say is asking? You'll get that one of these days. This is where the mind of our young people are. They don't even understand the reality of their own existence. But in the beginning, God told us where we were. You do understand, all of you, that unless he had not told Moses we would think we're floating around somewhere on the back of a turtle. But God told Moses, let me tell you where you are, first of all, and how you got here. In the beginning, I created the heavens, and you're on the earth. And I never want you to forget that I gave you dominion over this earth. I never want you to go astray and get your feet all twisted up in the devil's nightmare of color. We all are sailing on this shallow sea of color in America at this point in time. We've gone astray. Acts tells us that God, from one blood, created every one of us to dwell on this earth, and he determined the bounds of our habitations before we ever got here. So however I got here, my ancestors, the black ones, came here in the hulls of slave ships. The Scots-Irish, Bryant is actually my name, came here poor as poor could be. A couple of the Bryants live down in Coshada right now, the white ones and the black ones. God has laid the iniquity of us all on Jesus. Don't get your feet tangled with what the news media would want your feet to be tangled in. Racial unrest works real good for those who are race hustlers and make money off of it. Oh, I'm not welcome back to a lot of churches. You may understand this. But there is a hustle going on. There is a hoodwinking, a bamboozling going on in America right now. And it's time that we wake up and understand that there are factions, there are forces who would want to bring us down from the inside. A people who have been victorious over our weaknesses. There are those who would like to drag us back. We have gone astray. John Kennedy said in 1960, we choose to go to the moon. Americans, and the other things, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. That's who we are. We choose to beat coronavirus, not living as sheep, not because it'd be easy, but because it could be hard. And of course, we could have been lied to. We choose to go to the moon. Let us get back to being Americans. And then truly, finally, my son had a friend of his visiting at my church. In one of my churches, I've pastored 3 churches from California to Florida and served on many boards and staff at other churches around the country. Jane and I have. And I was up preaching one time. My son, we laughed about it, and you've heard the joke before, but my son actually did this. Little boy was there, and he said, your daddy keeps looking at his watch. What'd that mean? My son said, oh, that don't mean nothing. But I'll leave you with this. And this is the essence of who I am. I'm always a preacher first. That's what I was called to do. But in the last 11 years, I've taken on not only the preaching of the gospel of Jesus Christ, as I said earlier, but also spreading the good news of America. Told you that my story could not be told. Your story could not be told. Our story, the American story, could not be told anywhere else but here. My grandfather, the first CL, was an illiterate man. Well, my great-grandfather, the first CL, was an illiterate man. And he couldn't read. And neither could his wife read very well. I think great-grandma had something like a second-grade education. And so they named all the boys initials, like LC, WC, CW, because they couldn't read. Name the girls something simple like Sue and May, Aunt May and April. Named them after months and stuff like that. One day, Grandpa had told me to come down and help him set some fence posts. And friends, this is what really has set the course for my life, is the words of my grandfather. At the time, I was very Afrocentric. I had a huge afro. Michelle, you know. She's seen the pictures and so forth. And I had this old jalopy that I had put an 8-track tape deck in. Those of you old enough to remember 8-track tape decks. It cost more than a car, really. So there I was flying down this dirt road headed for the farm, which has been in our family for 150 years, since right after slavery. I still hold on to 64 acres of that land. It was once 300. I come flying down that same dirt road, kicking up a dust. And playing on the 8-track tape deck, James Brown. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. Grandpa heard it, of course. You would have to be dead not to have heard it. But as he saw me pull up on the place, I could tell that the old man was upset because he was striding toward me with purpose. And as he got close enough to speak to me, Granddaddy didn't have education, but he was very successful. Had 2 pulpwood trucks. Hired 15, 20 men in the summertime. Cut wood. He couldn't read, but you wasn't going to beat him out of money. He put his rough-hewn pulpwood cutting finger in my face. And he said to me these words, tears brimming in his eyes. Sonny, I didn't go through all that I have gone through so that you can be black. He said, Sonny, I went through everything that I've gone through so you could be free. Free to go places I won't go. Free to do things I'll never do. But above all, I want you to remember I went through what I went through so you would be able to speak your mind. Our first rights as God's children is to be able to choose and speak. But like sheep, we have gone astray. And we're turning to the ways of those who mean us no good. But your way out is the out that all of us have. And never forget that his name is Jesus. And that God has laid upon him the iniquity of us all. Come to him today. And Americans, stand up. Stand up. Stand up. God bless you. God bless America.